Hi, Mushe. We're on live now.
Oh, that's excellent.
Oh,
How are you? How was your day?
good. How was yours?
Good. Busy, but good. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Hi, Pamela. We've got Pamela. We've got a few people tuned in.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, we're just gonna wait. How has been your day today? Have you been at work?
Yeah. I've been working, yeah. Working mommy duties and work. So it was a good day today. It was a good.
Yeah. Can you hear us? Pamela Daniels, can you hear us? Because you had put there no sound. Oh, good. You can hear us. Okay, great. Oh, brilliant. Yeah, we are good. I've been working all day. It's been really a bit of a busy day, but that's good. Busy is good.
Good.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's great. How are you feeling with this coronavirus and everything that's going on? How are you?
I am fine. I think I'm I'm feeling strong in terms of my mental well-being and just managing to stay on top of my well-being, but keeping those around me also sane is the job, because when like little ones, kids, I think they struggle sometimes, my daughter was practicing for almost the whole term for this Voice in a Million. They were going to go to Wembley Stadium and sing, and she rehearsed all her songs and dances. And it's like, okay, it's going to be in May, mommy. They postponed it to May. This is not going to happen. So those little moments of outburst, you're thinking, it's going to be okay. So it's just managing those bits and pieces as well as you're going along. And yeah, not easy.
Yeah, that's a hard bit, I think. Yeah. Oh, welcome Tendayi Ndoro, and welcome to everyone who's on. We've got some people on, and we're using a new software today. So we thank God it's working and it stays working. So that's really, really good. We've started today with Operation Gadzirira, Lungiselela, and Operation Prepare. Because of the days that we are living in, not just the days that we're living in, but we always have to be prepared. But I think that the times that we are living in have made certain things so stand out, because we realize our mortality now more than ever. And it's a time for us to start to have those really difficult conversations. So thank you for starting for coming on to talk about dying and financial readiness, because I think it's something that we don't really like to talk about, but which we must talk about.
I know.
Yeah. So thank you. So Tendayi, maybe you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do and why you are an expert in this area.
Yeah. So I'm Tendayi. I've worked in financial services since I was 19. My first job was during a gap year at a bank at HSBC, and then I went back to uni, worked and studied economics and finance, and went back into banking. So I've done everything financially regulated, from setting up loans, credit cards, advising on pensions, mortgages, But a few years ago, I came out and started. I think one of the things that always bothered me as an individual was people who would come into the bank when a baby was born saying, hey, I've got a little baby, I want to set up a life insurance, were people of other ethnic backgrounds, and that would never happen in my culture, savings plans and things like that. So when I stepped out a few years ago, I felt that, okay, the people I really want to work with are mainly my own people, to just give them the ins and outs, demystify the myths. I know we struggle to talk about it. It's a taboo topic, but actually, one of us, all of us are going to go at some point. And so that's why I'm really passionate about it, because I think working in the banks and in the financial sector, I've seen the impact. I've seen, I was saying a tale of two widows, one widow who has a husband who had set up life insurances, put things in trust and written a will, versus somebody who doesn't have that. And the story for the two would be so different. The lives and the struggles that the other one would go through would just be so immense. And so I'm not scared. I feel I'm an evangelist in that department. Just literally, say, hold on, yes, we will live, will not die. Jesus is Lord, you will be healed, you will be saved. However, if he chooses to take you, yeah, he'll take you. And what will happen to you? What will happen to your family? So yeah, that's why I'm very passionate about that area. I know it's one of the reasons that all of us wake up early in the morning and we grind. We go to work, because we want to put food on the table. We want to buy new shoes for our kids. We want our kids to have the best, our families to have the best. So if we're thinking about that whilst we're here on earth, we need to also think about what happens when we depart. Can those good plans continue even without us in the picture? So yeah, that's me really in a nutshell.
Oh, that's great. You are an evangelist, and I know you go all over the country, you go to churches, you go to conferences, talking about financial readiness and preparation. And I just, what is it? I think even some of the viewers, if you could tell us as well in the comments, why is it that people don't want to talk about death, one, and two, maybe to make those difficult decisions, like making a will, like those type of things? Why do people not want to talk about it?
Yeah, I mean, if I start to just share what I think is one of the issues, because I think when I approach it with all of my clients, it's a question of, you did, no, you didn't. No, you didn't talk about that, is the fear for starters. I mean, let's face it, nobody wants to go. The reason why the whole country, the world is on lockdown is we don't want people to die. We don't want anyone to die before our time. We want to live forever. There's someone who's saying that song, I want to live forever. We do, So the fear of that there could be a time that you're no longer here on earth, that's something scary. Or a time where your loved one could not be there on earth. So we don't want to even talk about it. And I think sometimes we confuse things like, what you think about, that's what's going to play out. So we don't put things into context when it comes to some things that are quite practical, that look on this earth, those who have been, they've gone. And it's like a conveyor belt, we're here for a certain time. So fear is one. Maybe sometimes ignorance, not really knowing actually what is there, what can I do about it, and I think speaking to somebody who's an expert in that field is a good thing. Like even at the moment, if we'd heard about Okay. Thank you, Sandra. I'm seeing the message from Sandra there. Yeah. Totally, Sandra. It would be awesome that, men could be speaking that, because that's also one of the things that I struggle with a lot of the times, where the women are saying, yes, we want to do this, but they go home and Baba says, no, actually, I don't need that. Because men would love to be the ones who initiate maybe that conversation. And but again, so I know a lot of great male advisors out there who relate to that. So if you know that you have a husband or who doesn't necessarily would not hear it if a woman was speaking the message, there are plenty of great male advisors out there who would be able to deliver the same content. So yeah, but ultimately the message should be taken on and taken apart and saying, okay, what are we dealing with here? What would happen?
So what we could say is that people, sorry to cut you, that they don't want to, people don't talk about death or estate planning, because one, you said there's fear of dying, and fear of kuroiwa. I think I went to do a workshop somewhere, and someone said, if anybody knows that I've got these things, they'll kill me. So the fear of that, if you prepare for death, then the beneficiaries could kill you. Superstition, the faith that God will provide, even if I'm gone, it doesn't matter. My children will survive. I'm not going to die, and things like that. So sometimes it's and then Sandra talked about the patriarchal nature of our society, that Varume can end up refusing to do these things, especially if we suggest it, isn't it? If the woman says, let's do this, sometimes men don't want to follow. They don't want to follow when a woman says it. And if you're an advisor, you've got Mama Kumba. When you see Tendayi. So it's that patriarchal as well. That's another thing, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes. But you know, I still, so that's it, you know, where you think, okay. And I guess that now is down to, maybe if you're the wife and you realize that, we need, every woman knows how to communicate with their husband, or must learn the language that your husband speaks to get things done, and vice versa, you know. I have several husbands who come and say, look, I need to sort out for this for my wife. I want to make sure this, and I always applaud them. I think, wow, you know, this is, so there are many men who don't mind, who can take the lead. Once they get the information, they realize, I didn't know we could do that. Okay, right. This is what we're doing. So I think that there's options for people. You know what I mean? There's some people who are watching this show now. Some people don't like the sound of your voice or the sound of mine, but there's somebody else who's doing a similar thing. So it's just identifying kuti pane chinhu chiri kuda kugadziriswa panapa. Ndiani watiri kuda kudhila naye anokwanisa kutigadzirisira, you know. So but so that's one as well. The other one that I was thinking of, so we talked about superstitions, and just Congo, death is a taboo topic, you know what I mean? That's in our culture. Rufu, anything chikangodanzi wakuda kufa kana waswakundishuridzira.
And I've seen as well just the difference here, where even in the medical, like Isusukumba, when how they do end of life care here, they tell you, you've got 3 weeks, you've got this, you've got that, and then, you know, but for us, I think that's something that's very difficult to accept. Another person can tell us, you've got 3, and usually their prognosis is so dead or spot on, but for us, that's not something that I especially people from a faith background, you know, we find that very difficult to receive, and so it's a big topic in terms of, and like now today, I think we've had over 21,000 people in the United Kingdom who have died in the last few months. I think I wouldn't know how many weeks, 7 or 8 weeks since the death started. I can't remember the exact date. But if you just think, all these people in such a short space of time have died. And, you know, that's what made me think, okay, you know what, we need to do something, because even our own brothers and sisters are dying, people that we know. And it's so painful. Young people in their 40s, people with no underlying health conditions, young, fit people, healthy people, you know. So it's just taking everyone. It's indiscriminate, this disease. And it's highlighting some of the things that we need to prepare. So I wanted us to just start with financial. You know, a lot of NHS workers have died, and nurses, and some of them single moms, and children are being left on their own. So how can, I think that's one of the greatest fears that I've heard from people saying, "Vana vangu vachaita sei? I'm so scared. I don't even want to go to work. If I die, what will happen?" And it's mostly from you know, people who are going into the front line. And I know they gave a death in service. The government is giving a death in service of 60,000 pounds. So I think I'll ask you 2 questions, Tendayi. The first one is perhaps the death in service. If you are a person who is in the gig economy, like a lot of people work as contractors, people work 0 hour contracts, or if you are like, like you're working agency, a lot of nurses work agency, so they wouldn't automatically qualify. I don't know, I'm not sure about these death in service. And also people who are business owners who perhaps are self-employed, they've got a care agency, they're going out and working. What happens to those people financially? Do they qualify? What do they have?
So death in service is usually, linked and related to your pension. So if you're not employed by an employer, you wouldn't get that. I'm
Okay.
self-employed. There's no death in service for me. When I worked for the bank, I had death in service that was linked to my pension. But once I left, the day I left, that ended. So that's one of the things that, as a contractor, as an agency worker, people tend to get paid more, but they just look at the rate. The rate is higher, but they don't think that actually with this higher rate I'm getting paid, and the freedom I have to be responsible and take care of these things on my own now. So things like your pension, your life insurance, your private health, your income protection, sick pay, those are things that as a contractor, as a gig agency worker, you have to sort out on your own. So you would not be covered with, because there's no employer who's responsible for you on their book.
So what would people like that do? What would they? So those £60,000 that were given would only be for a person who was working in the NHS.
Yeah.
As if who's working in the NHS, who's got the pension and everything. Is that right then?
So I haven't particularly seen the one you've mentioned about the government is offering that death in service bit. So I'll have a look at that. But typically, death in service means you're working within the system.
Okay.
And when your agency, because you could be sleeping at home 6 months of the year, and you're not in service really. You can choose to say I want to work 4 months a year, and then the other months I don't. So you're not really in service. You choose how you work. You're not.
And so what about the people who then don't qualify? What could they do to be able to get that lump sum, which is what lump sums can people get so that their loved ones, especially children, especially people with young children who are not yet self-sufficient, how can people prepare so that they can be okay financially after their parents
So there are different sort of term assurances that you can take out, some that are a bit more tax efficient, things like relevant life insurance policies, where your company, say if you set up a limited company, that would pay for the premiums and their tax advantages of that. They would then put it in trust so that you nominate who your beneficiaries are. So in the same way that the death in service would work. So the company, because you set up a limited company, it's now your employer. So you can set up a similar death in service type policy through that company. If you are working, say, via umbrella or just a lay agency, you can take up a standard, level term policy, a whole of life policy, family income benefit policy. That one differs a little bit because it makes sure that there's a stream of income that keeps coming until maybe your youngest is independent. You have to be thinking about things like, because what typically happens when someone dies and they receive a lump sum of money, it's almost like a lottery windfall. Suddenly you've got 300,000 in the bank account. And records have it that most of those people within 3-4 years, if it's not managed, if they don't get advice or guidance, that money's disappeared. So you can set it up knowing your own to say, okay, I'll set up a little bit to get a lump sum, a little bit to make sure that Vana keep getting that Marino Pindamo account in their trust account until they're 18, 21 or 25.
So you can do a combination. You go to a lump sum, and then like your salary coming in all the time. They can have both of those.
Yes, you can have both of those. Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah.
And somebody said, what if they are linked to mortgages?
So something that's linked to a mortgage, when you took out the policy, you set it up for the mortgage. So you wanted to know that if somebody died or if you died, the mortgage is settled. However, what happens with these policies is they don't necessarily go and look for the mortgage lender. They will still give you the money and you decide what you do with it.
Okay.
But the mortgage linked one will be related to clearing the mortgage off.
Yeah.
So really and truly, you do want something that covers above and beyond the mortgage. Because if you look at a guide to say, what do I need? Is like, okay, the mortgage is maybe £1,000 a month, but you still have council tax, gas, electric, and let's say you've got 3 kids and you're juggling childcare together. One person snatched away. Yes, the roof over the head is settled, but now you've got one parent who's got to deal with the emotional needs of 3 children, and the outgoings don't really change that much, except for maybe that £800 your mortgage. So don't you want there to be almost like your salary to keep coming in, perhaps? So it's those sort of conversations that we would have when you sit down with an advisor like myself and put the appropriate plans based on your needs, the age of your kids. When you think your kids are going to be fine.
Does it cost a lot, like per month? Is it very expensive?
No, to be honest, you can get a life policy from as little as £5 a month. You get what you pay for at the end of the day. So a lot of people run for the number. Imari, don't I have £5 a month? But then you might find that it only lasts for 5 years or 10 years. After 10 years, pera, and then what are you going to do? So you need to be thinking, okay, I always say to people, take it out as quick as young as you are, because the younger you are, the cheaper it is. You don't have any pre-existing conditions. Pre-existing conditions don't stop you from qualifier, but they just mean kutizoni, you're likely to have to pay more than the person.
Stop. I need to stop you. Sorry. So you've said because Tendayi, this is your job. Saka, you know it all, but you're speaking to us who it's not our job. So you talked about pre-existing conditions, and so what type of, would that stop you, or is it limiting my chances of what you can get? So what type of pre-existing conditions would hinder a good life policy, or to have a broader choice?
Yes. So high blood pressure, diabetes, HIV, you've had cancer before, multiple, so anything that's a condition, you know what I mean? Rheumatoid arthritis, anything that is you take a medication for. You have to note it when we set up the policy. It doesn't stop you from getting the cover, but it just means where maybe if you were fit, fine, okay, it might have cost you, let's say, £10 a month. With a pre-existing, just throwing a figure out of the air, it might now cost you £15 a month for the same cover. Yes.
Wow. So that's really, really insightful, Kuti. Because some people will say, "Oh, Inina, I'm disqualified because I've had cancer or because I'm HIV positive, so I won't get one." But what you're just saying is, no, you will, but it just might be slightly more expensive because the risk of you dying is higher. But I think COVID has thrown all that in there because now
everybody's in the game, eh? Everyone's up for grabs. So bad.
So that's, and what about there was something else that came to mind that I wanted to ask. So the pre-existing condition can limit, or it can what about immigration status? That's something that somebody asked in my inbox. They said I don't have papers, so what can I get life insurance? Because there are a lot of people who don't yet have the right to remain here. So can they get life cover?
So if you're registered in the system, so you've got your ID, you've got your whatever, yes, you can, because you're still known as resident, or those however, kana uri mepo usuri kuoneka pa system, obviously you can't get covered, because who are we covering? Someone who's a sipo. I believe Panama Moma policies out there, my cash plans that you can sort of put in place. You probably need to be a bit more robust and put things in place. So yeah.
Well, there's a question here from Kudzai in Zimbabwe, in Harare. Hello. He says, how easy is it for us in Zim to get a life policy in the UK?
So you can't, if you're not initially a UK resident, you won't be able to. However, if someone was resident in the UK first, then they relocate, say, to Zim, and they're taken out their policy here, as long as they keep paying the premiums, they would be covered wherever they die. So as
So,
long
like,
as
for example, Sekru Kudzai was a student here.
yes, when he was
yeah
pavanga vari kuno vari registered kwa-GP kuno vakatora policy kuno vachiramba vachibhadhara, you would have been able to sort of get away with that and keep paying the premiums from his UK bank account. But now that's no.
Yeah, okay. And I told him that he should have stayed here. So yeah, so that's another. And there's another question there from Petronella Ganza. She says, can you change your life policy company every year?
Why would you want to do that?
Change it every year, Petronella.
Yeah. So yeah. So, you can. There's nothing stopping you. You can have 15 policies as long as when they ask the question, do you have existing life policies? Can we, you know what I mean? Disclose good, yes, I've got 500,000 so far. Then they will now start thinking, policy and they were found in the island. So
yes, I remember that guy.
Motive yako chi 5 million life insurance, what's happening? And you don't necessarily have a business or debts that are linked to that. So they might want to chi. So they'll come and do a full medical, etc., etc. But there's really nothing stopping you from changing it every year. But you wouldn't really want to do that because each time you apply, you're going through medical underwriting, perhaps. It gets more expensive each year you get older. So I always say to my young students, once they start working, I'm like, guys, toraka police, because for 200,000 pounds worth of cover, maybe it's £5 a month. Yeah. When you're now 40, if you want that 200,000 pounds, it's not going to be £60 a month or just. And I'm not saying those are the figures, but just pulling an example. The younger you are, the cheaper it is. Saka, start younger. But yeah, I hope that answers you, Petronella, to an extent.
To an extent, isn't it? Yeah. And so Pamela's asked, can I transfer a retirement annuity from South Africa to the UK?
So Pamela, I don't want to answer that question because I'm not regulated at the moment to speak about pensions. However, we do have advisors within my team who can answer that question for you. But as a general rule, there are offshore investments, offshore funds, and things like that individuals can look at if they're trying to do those sort of things, I believe. But I would always say, go and speak to someone who's regulated in the industry, seek advice, understand your risk appetite. Why do you want to do these things? And make a sound judgment on that. I hope that helps.
So that's really, I wanted to just stress there that Tendai, there's different financial services. So just like me as a solicitor, I specialize in 2 areas or 3, family, immigration, and wills and probate. So other areas of law, I don't do them because I don't have the skill and the expertise. So I can end up giving you wrong advice on certain things. I don't do any conveyancing because of the insurance premiums and things like that. So similarly with you guys get regulated in certain areas. So you're not regulated in pensions and annuities. So Tendai is not going to mislead you and their heads. But there's people who are specialized in that. So Pamela, that's why she said she didn't want to specifically answer that question because you can end up being misled, and we wouldn't want that. So there's areas of specialism that Tendai has, which she's regulated to give. So so it's important as well. Edna's saying some brokers, they review annually and they ask people to change every year when they found a better deal. So I don't know about that.
So yeah, I tend to review my clients maybe a couple of years, or if there's been a lifestyle change, speak to me. Sometimes they are better deals, for what you're paying, and if I can notice that, I'll be like, hey, you know what? your life insurance, because life insurance, for instance, it pays out on death, pronto. You know what I mean? That's it. So if there's something over the last few years, we've probably noticed life insurance has gotten cheaper because life expectancy has increased over the years. You know, people are expected to live longer, so the premiums have become a lot cheaper. Critical illness cover has, I think, become slicker over the last 10 years, better. If you had a policy, sometimes from, you know, it depends on the cover as well. You know, I remember a time back in the, you know, early 2000s, something like HIV/AIDS would just be covered, like just covered without. Now it's like you have to have had it through a work accident or something. So if you had a policy from then which has better terms, you don't want to be switching it every year. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So as long as the advisor is analyzing it, and making sure that the terms really are better for you and you can see it and your medical circumstances haven't changed. You know, I've put on a bit of weight. I'm like, hey, before I look for some more cover, I better lose some weight. You know, because it's going to be more expensive for me now. So someone who would want to switch my cover now, I'm like, I'm not going to get it as cheap as I got it 2 years ago. So can you just hold it right there? Yeah. So, yeah.
That's good. So you, before Dottie had asked if you can increase the amount of your life policy to get more out of it. So that's what you've answered, really, isn't it? About reviewing the terms. And if your circumstances have changed, then that's important as well. So you can do that. I wanted to ask you a question about critical illness cover because you mentioned that in passing. So, for example, now with COVID-19, would that be so? If somebody got sick and they went to ICU, they were ventilated, or even just at home, I think this is a critical illness. I don't know. What does that mean? Do they have to be in hospital? What happens there?
Yeah, so critical illness cover covers specific illnesses, and it really depends on your policy. So there are probably about 3 or 4 policies out there that would cover you if you went in hospital but were actually on a respirator for a set number of days. So some would say if you're in ICU for 10 days or if you're on a respirator for 7 days, then you'd qualify, but there are not many like that. So a lot of them actually, just getting COVID-19 wouldn't cover you, critical illness cover. But if you had maybe income protection cover, something like that would kick in. Yeah. If you're on statutory sick pay, which is, you know, the government 95, is it 95, 75? I can't remember what it is right now off the top of my head without searching it. Then income protection would be more useful to you perhaps in this circumstances. So I think very few people would have policies that would cover it for critical illness on there.
So it would be income protection.
Income protection, yeah, which would, if you're off sick and you're not able to work, but even a lot of people might not even qualify because, you know, with income protection, it covers you for your salary if you're not working and brings your money in. But there's something called a deferred period. So you choose your deferred period when you take the policy out. And what the deferred period is like saying, Tendayi, you know what, if I'm sick, I've got savings for at least a month or two, and you need the policy to kick in right there and then. So I could manage. So if you've had your deferred period as a month or 2 months, after a month, most people, COVID, kind of. So you would not have even had the chance to claim on it. Do you know what I mean? Because you're within the deferred period. But if you've taken out one of the income protection policies, maybe with a day one cover or 2 weeks deferred period, and warwara for 2 weeks, signed off sick, a lot of policies were actually using 111 saying self-isolate as a plus, as a thumbs up. That's fine. We'll take that as the doctor's sick note because people can't go to the GP in this climate. So, you know, then that would work for you as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting. So that's really good. So in terms of whilst you're alive, if you get critically ill or income protection, that's important to have. If you die, there's the life insurance. So I want to ask another question here, which is from a personal experience. When we were growing up, my dad always used to tell us about his policies. Old Mutual policy young, my father always talked about his policies. He had all his things, ducks in a row. But then, as you know, in Zimbabwe, what happened? A lot of these were wiped out, and a lot of elderly people were left with nothing. All of that had invested in those policies called mutual. I remember it so well. And here, what assurance do people have? If I put my money in this policy, will that protect me? If I if I if I put my, or should I just save my money, get real estate, just sort out my things so that I can perhaps save my money, buy a piece of land in Zimbabwe, and my children, if I'm gone, they'll have that. So sometimes people think of the two ways and balance those because of what security do they have.
Yeah. So one of the things I love about being here is like all the I'm an independent broker, so the companies that I work with, they're all regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority, and there's the financial compensation scheme which covers insurances as well. So if, for instance, a company were to go under, etc., there are limits that you are covered for. What you tend to usually find with an insurance book is it's quite a profitable arm of any business, So if a company, let's say, is struggling, that's usually the business book they sell on to somebody else. So I know some people in the past who started off their policy with America Life, then it moved to Zurich, then it moved to this, because what was happening was the insurance book was being sold on to other people, but the terms that they had were maintained. However, we have that assurance that the government covers the schemes that these insurance providers have to pay into to cover it. I remember back in the 2008 crash, I'm forgetting the bank now, but it wasn't actually in the UK. What was it called? It was an Icelandic bank. I was doing investments at the time, and a lot of my clients who had their savings there, it wasn't a UK bank, you know what I mean? But the UK got backed those savings up. Do you know what I mean? So I take hats off. I feel happy working in an industry or a country where they do take those measures to try and protect people from from scams, from things that would cause you not to be able to get your money when you've put your money in, which is why I think there are such strict advisory processes before you get advice. If you're saying you're giving advice, you have to be qualified, you have to go through certain measures. So if you want that assurance as well, go and get an advisor to do it, someone who is regulated in their field.
So, because you like you advise people for free, you don't charge for that, and it's much better than trying to perhaps do a DIY online. Because
I think so. I think there's no harm in speaking to someone. And I always find, like, the other day someone was saying, gosh, this thing is there's so much to think about. And I'm like, yeah, because when you're sitting on your own, you're thinking, I just want to make sure that if I die, and that's it. But you don't think about the other back end things that maybe we think about and we see regularly.
Yeah, that's so true. And it's the same, because you pay for it later. When you do shortcuts and think, okay, I'm just going to do DIY, it's okay. I haven't practiced in insurance, but I did it at university. And I know that insurance companies have got so many little clauses where they can not pay, which are lawful. So, like, if you mislead them, if you tell a lie, and like here, I'm going to say this, right? People who've come, especially those who've come to England, have learned to lie unnecessarily because of the system, because of immigration, and people tell lies. Like, the minute you enter into the UK, people are lying. Are you here for holiday? Yes, but you know that you're not going back. So people sometimes tell unnecessary lies. So insurance applications, if you put something that's not truthful, and then it's later found out, that nullifies the policy, and they won't pay, will they?
No, they won't. One of the other things that I've found was actually really good, because in recent years, a lot of them, they won't pay, but a lot of them have started just giving back your premiums to say, had we known that you had diabetes, you didn't tell us. Had we known, but they don't have to, they just do that because of their reputations. They don't, it's better for them it's such bad press, Kunzishoni, a big name. I'm not going to say anyone in particular. Let's say Zuze Insurance. It's not worth the trouble. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the reason they wouldn't have paid is either you haven't been honest on the insurance, on the medical disclosure form, or you're trying to claim for something you're not covered for. I hear a lot of people at the moment say, "Oh yeah, no, I've gotten my life insurance, denial critical cover," and I'm like, "Okay, how much are you paying?" £9 a month, and I'm thinking, £9 a month, critical illness, to dure. You know what I mean? So they have terminal illness cover, and terminal illness, terminal illness cover means that the doctor has said to you, they don't expect you to live for 12 months or more. So you're almost walking dead in their view. So at that point, the insurance will say, you know what, we're not going to wait till your death date. Let's give you the money now. Plan with your family, organize yourself, we'll give you the money in advance. But people have that. They see that terminal illness and they think it's critical illness. Critical illnesses, most people are out for a year or two. They go back, they remain alive. Life just changes, Probably over a decade, 2 decades ago, let's say 70% of people would have a heart attack. That meant kutwatofa, But now people who have a heart attack, 70% actually live, So a heart attack, the critical illness, you receive the money, but you're not maybe able to go back to hectic lifestyle or and so
yeah. I love Mama. My Mama says, thanks for asking my mind. I'll never take a policy because of Old Mutual. She was also scarred by Old Mutual. I think a lot of people were wounded. But it's good to know that the regulatory structure here is better, isn't it? The regulatory structure it makes people feel safe and secure. And the Financial Services Authority, they are the ones who oversee to ensure that people's policies are safe. But the most important thing, I think, as well, is what we said about get the information right, do the right thing, speak to an advisor, sit down and get them to know your circumstances. Because circumstances change. I mean, we can't cover everything in an hour, but what we're saying is get the right advice. You don't even have to see Tendayi. You can look for anyone who's FSA regulated, but Tendayi is available, and you were going to put your link or your contact details so that people can contact you and you can get the advice that you need, because it's helpful for your different circumstances. I know someone asked in the inbox about they've got a trust, a life policy, and they wanted to know about, when we had the funeral yesterday for Rutendo, which was on her church's website, Renew Church. And I think it was shown on Zimbo Live today. They spoke to her pastor today, and it was so heartbreaking. She's a little girl, and she's got some family members here, but most of the family are in Zimbabwe. So now, when she was sick, I think it was put all over social media, like we were praying for her and the church was giving live updates. And it really, really, I used to go to church with her in Solihull before she moved. And I knew her little girl. And it's something that, about 20,000 deaths, but when it hits so close to home, it affects everyone, because a lot of people could identify and relate to her. So some of the people were saying, I've got a child, I'm a single mom. What am I going to do? Because you get the life policy, your children are minors. How does that work? So that your children are able to get the money and they are looked after until they're adults. What can parents do? Just perhaps in a nutshell, because I know that's advice you would give. So like a single parent, what would they do? A 2-parent family, maybe one would remain and look after the children. But similarly, especially in COVID days, Both parents close to each other. And then what happens to the children? How can the children, who can help them to administer the money? If you haven't appointed, so just to talk about, I know you can appoint guardians and all that, but just to break it down in terms of your life policy and the financial aspect of that.
So yeah, you need to nominate trustees, and not necessarily because she's my best friend or whatever, but it's really thinking who is going to be able to manage the money in the way that is responsible and make sure that the kids receive the things they need. So a trust account typically is set up for them, and the trustee would be the one up until they're 18 who makes sure that they get the things that they need. Make sure the money is apportioned for those things. So it has to be someone who's responsible. And you can set up 2 or 3, 4 trustees, I think up to 4 for a policy. So you can have, a few different people as trustees. And then just have that conversation with them, to say, you know what, I've appointed you as trustee. If something happens to me, I want Ruru or Shingi to keep going to, her drama school. I don't want that to stop. This is what I would have loved. I've put this money aside for this. This one is for a property. I would want them to have a roof over their heads. But I don't want them to struggle. So once she finishes uni, this one is really for her deposit or whatever you want to do, and just specify it, because I always find that, we really do respect my wishes, you know what I mean? And when someone's not necessarily there for us to guide us through anymore, those things are actioned out. So, but yeah, be careful who you obviously you appoint.
Because they would, so you can appoint like 4 people, your friends or family, who would then administer the trust. And so if your child, I think it's important to have those other conversations. Tomorrow we're going to talk about some of the legal side of things, but who is the child going to stay with?
Yes.
What do you want? Do you want your child, if you die, do you want your child to go and live in Zim? Do you want them to stay here? Would you be happy for them to go into foster care? Who would be able? Those are difficult conversations, but important conversations to have. If I die tomorrow, what's going to happen to my minor child? Who's going to look after them? Are they going to go and live with their dad if you're split? Are they going to, if they live with their dad, financially, how is it going to look like? What can I put in place for that? If dad has got a new partner, a new wife, those are conversations to have, to say, if I pass on, this is what I would like, because the other parent is usually the first choice, isn't it? Or if not, then who? My parents, if they're alive. Or I think it's important to be able to talk about those things now.
Yeah.
If not actually healthy, we can still talk about it and say, these are the things that I would like. Like what you said, I would like my child to continue to go to this school. I want them to do this. I want them to do that. And put things in place with trusted people and have those difficult conversations. Because I think when you try and have those conversations, sometimes people brush you aside. What, are you sick? Why? You're going to die. You're here. Come on, But I think it's important for us to be able to have those very challenging conversations now and put things in place.
Totally agree. Yeah. And, I always say to people, it's not something that you have to dwell on or meditate on constantly. You just have to just buckle yourself up and say, you know what, let's look at this now. And actually those conversations, once you've had them, if you keep having them, they become easier conversations, because it is an elephant in the room, We talk about it all the time. Actually, there's more chances of any one of us going from any other reason rather than COVID. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just a hot banana right now that's making everyone realize, whoa. But, we hear stories every day of people walk out, or You know, we hear those stories all the time of
Mhm.
sudden deaths, or even they were fine, they started developing a rash, and then they realized it's cancerous and it's actually stage 4. You know what I mean? So those things are happening every day, all the time.
Yeah.
So and there's no one, you can't say to yourself, um oh, it'll never happen to me. Yes, you can declare and stand, but I just think there are trials that come to all of us. We've all gone through some stuff that you're like, you know what, I wouldn't wish this upon anybody. This was
Mhm.
a really hard time, but we're still here to
Mhm.
tell the story. And had you gone through it again, there's things that would have made it easier. But with this particular one, with this one of death, it's coming for everybody.
Yeah. And I
Unless
think
rapture happens, which I can always say rapture can happen at this rate. I wouldn't, it feels like, yeah, we're getting closer, but you know what I mean.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
coming,
And
and
I think, the Bible tells us as Christians that there's a time to be born and there's a time to die. So
mm,
those two things are certain, that you will be born and you will die. And
mm,
but we prepare for a baby, we do everything when someone is being born. But when it's time to die, it's not so easy.
mm,
But it's something that we need to prepare for and have those conversations. Hopefully, we will live long, see our grandchildren, our great
yes,
grandchildren,
yes,
and will be satisfied with long life.
yes,
That's our declaration.
yes,
But we still need to prepare
that's
in
it.
case anything happens, because we don't know. Our life is not in our hands. It's not ours. And those are the things that we have to look at. I think Kathy just said we were listening into your conversation. Yes, we were. Kathy, yes, we were eavesdropping in your conversation, because these are good that we are having those conversations, and we want those conversations to carry on, for people to have those difficult conversations, to say, what have you got in place, what would happen if this happened, let's talk about it in the home. Husbands and wives, talk about it and discuss, to say, okay, what would happen if this happened to me, what would happen if this happened to you, what would we do, and have those conversations, and prepare to say what would happen with the kids, and write it down. Go and see a professional to take away the emotion, because sometimes there can be so much emotion that comes into it. So if you see a professional, they detach from you. If you talk about it, who's going to look after them? Your mom or my mom? Okay, let's put both. Eh,
Mm,
so just have those conversations and make those decisions in a rational way, and plan and have it there somewhere out, for someone to see. I know our time is going, but I wanted us to just talk about something else. I love what Batsy Watashi said. It's so true. I'm always asking my clients at work if they have lasting powers of attorney, but never thought of putting one for myself. And we're talking about lasting powers of attorney tomorrow with Andrew. And that's important, to have lasting powers of attorney. I advise my clients about wills. I wrote so many wills and I didn't have one until I sorted myself out. So I wasn't even taking my own advice. So it's so true. Sometimes
done.
I really found it difficult. I really found it so hard, and I just wished it was nothing that I would ever have to do. Because when we were talking about the kids, talking about this, and I said, I don't like about this. So I think that's why it makes it difficult. So
Yeah.
that's really important.
Yeah, I guess it's like a fire drill, isn't it? And
Yeah,
at work we have fire drills. You don't go, yeah, fire drill, not prepared. If there's a fire, this is how you're gonna get out, escape there. So we must just see it in the same way. Kuti, look, that conversation is like a fire drill. The day that it happens, the process will be smoother for everybody. It's like ndozvatakambotauра zikoreria
eh,
ndozoona kuti angada kuti zvigodai arikuda kuigwa kumusha akati kana I don't want to go kumusha chichichi. So the process is easier. We know what to do
yeah,
on the day of reckoning.
yeah,
So yeah.
yeah. I love what Rob Bravo says, that death is part of life. Live life to the full, prepare for death, and accept it gracefully when it comes. That's so profound. That's true. Live life to the full as if you're going to be here forever, but prepare. And when it comes, it comes. So that's so true. I was gonna ask you about. I know we've got 7 minutes. About one of the things that happens sometimes is people die and nobody knows that they've got a life policy. They haven't had these conversations. Nobody knows what's there. So what advice would you give people? What would you advise them to do?
So first place to go and have a look, try and grab a hold of their bank statements, because that usually has some telltale signs of direct debits, things that they're paying out to. If you see an insurance name on there, that's your first point of contact, perhaps. Most people have the envelope in the wardrobe in the corner there with all their documents and things like that. If you know that your loved one is single, or mom passed on and dad's on his own, or vice versa, just ask, Tendi, when you go, where's your stuff? And I know a lot of people say, oh, speak to Ningi, can you speak to Tendai, speak to whoever, I've asked so and so to deal with it. So just have that conversation where you tell a few close people where your stuff is, so that it also puts people at ease. Because I think part of these difficult conversations, Rumbi, where, how do I ask vamwene vangu tezvara vangu kuti tezvara mune kavere, it's like because Murora is thinking we're here and you because you can actually insure your family. It's called insurable interest. You know what I mean? If you're responsible for them, you can take cover out on their behalf as long as they've consented to say, yeah, no, that's fine. I know there are some who are okay with that, but it's just one of those things that if people aren't going to ask you that, and if that's you who's single, living on your own, tell somebody, have a friend that will say, I know, but yeah, bank statements is always a good one. That will show where what is. Yeah, there's a file, usually a bag of papers that is usually discovered with statements and things. Obviously, you might have to rummage through that as well.
Yeah, so I remember my dad had a briefcase. He had a briefcase. We all knew his briefcase. That's where everything stayed. So it's good to have that place where everyone knows. And there was something about funeral policies. What would you? I'm just looking for the comment about recommendations for funeral policies. For taking diasporans home. I know there's quite a few. There's a few on the market, and they're cash plans, isn't it? Which then allow you to make decisions of what you want to do. So shop around. There's diaspora funeral cash plan. There's Nyaradzo. There's, I don't know. Those are the Zimbabwean ones, but I think there's some here as well, isn't it?
Yeah, no, there are quite a few about. I know I speak to the people from Diaspora Cash Plan, and I sometimes send people their way who, when they can't meet any other criteria because it doesn't have medical underwriting. So, I know that's there. I know Nyaradzo is there as well. For those who would also want to take out something that you can have here and take care of your parents back home. Yeah, but again, it's again, I always say it's about have a look at your age with all of these things, because here in the UK I do policies with companies which use, say, the co-op funeral, so it depends on your age, what you're paying. Always think about what is the impact. Like right now in this climate, many people maybe would love to go home, but they can't. So I don't know what those policies are actually doing as a replacement. I'm sure they're being goodwill gesture and giving the money, but I don't know. You know what I mean? So always just balancing it out and thinking about those things, which you can always have when you do speak to someone who's an advisor who tells you the pros and cons of the various different things and make sure that your money is doing the things that you want it to do or you expect it to do when the hour comes.
Yeah. So I think that's true. And I think Jeff is going to come on as well and speak about that. Because of and also talk about some of the claims they've had and what they've had to do. I think people have been cremated, people have been buried here. So sometimes your wishes can't be met because of the pandemic. And in Zimbabwe, they've got a policy that if you are bringing a corpse like from South Africa, from Zim, you're quarantined for 21 days first yourself, and then only the driver can take you to the burial spot and you're buried by yourself with social distancing all over the world. So it's a time when some of those wishes, they can't happen because of we live in extraordinary times, the times that we could never have thought this would happen. We could never have, no one could have ever thought this. So it's a time when you might have planned that you want to go and be buried at Glen Forest, but it's not. You're going to have to be buried here or cremated, and those are some of the things that are just going to have to happen. So that's what it is. So so I think our time is coming up, and we've talked about some of the things that you can do. So like your life policies, and even now when people are getting poorly, you can have critical illness cover, income protection. Those are all the type of things that you can get. There's so many products on the market, but it's important to get the correct advice, to know what suits you, how to get your trust. And I think today was just for us to talk about preparing financially, to start to have those difficult conversations with people around you, to highlight the importance of having that financial buffer in case you die unexpectedly, or even when you're old. It's nice when you've lived your life and you leave an inheritance for your grandchildren. You can. So it's still always good, because death is so painful. But when there's death, then there's poverty, there's financial problems. It's even worse. You can leave your loved ones with a legacy, a financial legacy, to say, okay, they're not going to worry about money. They can just cry for me, but at least I know. Even yourself, when you go with that assurance that they'll be okay financially. It miss me, of course, nothing can replace a parent, or nothing can replace a parent. No. But at least it's not that anything, even for your children to be in, it's so difficult. Even like children, when Zim, your parents, when you have that life policy, you can even prepare for them. That's one of the other things, where you are the main wage earner in your family. So not just your children and your immediate family. A lot of diasporans, there's black tax, isn't it? So they look after the whole family. So you can also have policies to ensure that those people are looked after. So you can take a smaller one, isn't it, where you can have a cash payment to give your parents, or to give the orphans that you look after, or people that depend on you. So those are all things that you can get advice on, which are helpful and very, very important for us to have those things in place. And Tendayi is available. She has a Calendly. I think if you could, when we come off, Tendayi, if you could put your link for your Calendly.
Okay, I'll do
your link, so that people can, so that they don't have to phone you, but they can put in a request for an appointment, and they can quote in their Rumbi's Eye Show, so that you know where they came from. So you can get more advice from Tendayi. She's very good. She's done all our stuff. She sorted us out nicely, so we're well covered. And so it's just important to be able to get that advice from experts. You don't have to use Google. Thank you for your time. Thank you so much. on and just having this conversation and giving of your time. We are so grateful and never take it for granted. It's good to share what you have. And tomorrow we're going to be talking to Andrew and myself about wills, about lasting powers of attorney, about other things that can happen. And then on Thursday, we've got a lawyer from Zim, Petronella. We're going to be talking about where you've got property in Zimbabwe and property here and how to navigate those things and blended families and all of those lovely things that we have which and then we're going to have some freedom type of things, and then we've got a grief counselor from Zim who's going to come, Dr. Justice, on Saturday. And so it's really good for us. We're going to have just a whole week dedicated to talking about these issues because of COVID, how it's just brought death to the front. So thank you guys for tuning in and for listening.
For setting all this up. We really need it as a community, just just to get practical, but also deal with some of the, the kind of worms that have been opened up for us as a community. So thank you for, availing yourself, for taking the time to set this up. It's invaluable.
Thank you, Tendayi. Do you have any parting words?
No, guys, please just keep safe and, hope to see you all on the other side of this episode. Just praying for you if you've lost your loved ones, that, God will just give you strength, that he protects you in this time, and, just try and keep your mental well-being upbeat. This too will pass. This too will pass. Yeah.
We'll
get through it. Yeah. And prepare, Gadzirira, let's be prepared. It'll make us feel less anxious. I had someone just to say that the other day, someone rang me and said, Tendayi, thank you for persisting and making sure I have cover. I can sleep easy knowing that I'm a single mom. If I died, okay, I've got that one. This is going to happen. So it's sometimes actually some of the anxieties that we have are because we haven't sorted ourselves out. So it will take an edge out of the bubble as well, just to get a bit more organized.
No, it takes the edge off, isn't it? It just gives a little bit of assurance. So that's really, really good. I'm typing in the comments. So please share this video and please subscribe if you're on YouTube, because we're streaming on YouTube. Thank you everyone on YouTube who's been watching, and on Facebook. Please share, please like, and let's get these conversations going. God bless you. Bye-bye.
Bye, Rumbi. Bye.